So we're going to cover depth of field, the 3 things that affect depth of field, and the factors that go into changing your depth of field. Can anybody tell me what depth of field is? You should know that, right? Anybody look it up? Anybody remember from last year? When I say you're going to change your depth of field, what do I mean?
How far away it is?
Not exactly. Any other ideas? It's how blurry your background is. Does that sound familiar? Right? It's either clear all the way through, or it's blurry in the background and clear on your subject, or it's something in between, right? So, let's see here. For depth of field, whoa. We're gonna make the people watching nauseous. All right, for depth of field, there are 3 things. Oh, I don't want them that close together. 3 things that affect depth of field. Can anybody tell me the big main factor? And this is a word you already know. It starts with an A. Aperture. Okay? So for this, it's your aperture. All right? So if I talk about my aperture, I'm talking about the opening of the lens, right? Does anybody remember what we talked about as it pertains to depth of field instead of exposure when I close this and open this? Anybody remember? Closed is one, big is one, and then in between is another. So this is a bit open aperture, and I'm not gonna do it in between. And then a closed aperture. Anybody idea which one would be a deep depth of field and which one would be a shallow depth of field? Are you awake? I'm pretty sure I'm teaching to an empty room, just so you guys know. The small one is shallow, and the big one is deep. What do you guys think? Agree or disagree? Agree? 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 You guys are all jumping on the bandwagon. You're wrong. You're wrong. It's the opposite of that, all right? So this is going to be our shallow, and this is going to be our deep, okay? Deed, otherwise known as deep. Will you do me a favor and grab the lights, like just these 2 to the left? I'm going to try to illustrate something. You watch here. The easiest way that I found to show this is if you think about a pen light versus a flashlight, okay? So my flashlight, it makes sort of this big fuzzy edged light, right? Okay? My other one, it's a small opening and it can go like, seriously, like, right? I can shine it clear over there, right? You guys can't see, but I'm shining it down the hall. Okay? Does that make sense to you? So if you think about your aperture, you can turn those lights back on. If you think about your aperture, oh, sorry, it's allergy season. If you think about your aperture like the opening of these, that will help you, okay? So the big opening had fuzzy edges and didn't shine nearly as far, right? And then the small one, where it was concentrated and it was all focusing one direction in a really small space, that one went way farther. Okay? Help? Yes? All right. Number 2. Does anybody know this? Anybody know what it is? This is going to be, starts with an F. Yes? No? Maybe? No? All right. I'll just teach it. So this is your focal length. When I say focal length, what am I talking about? Kind of, yes. Besides focusing, what else do you do with your lens? Mm-hmm. Okay. So this is your zoom, how far in and how far out you're zoomed, okay? So if I have my camera and I am, wait a minute, which one do I want to do? I want to do these the same. So shallow depth of field. Okay. So if I zoom in, right? If I zoom in, then I'm going to have a shallower depth of field. Okay? If I, good morning, if I zoom out, then I'm going to have a deeper depth of field. Does that make sense to you? Okay? Zooming in, bigger, right? Smaller, zooming out, deeper depth of field. Good so far? Okay. It's this lovely thing. All right, our third one is similar to zoom, but a little different. So I can get closer by two ways. What would the two ways be? If I want to be closer to my subject, I can either what? Actually move, or I can zoom. So this is going to be my real distance, right? So this is my real distance. So when I say my distance, I mean my distance two different ways, okay? My distance between the camera, I gotta think about which way I draw this. The camera and the background. No, the camera and the subject. So I want shallow, okay. So camera and my subject, okay? I am close, correct, to my subject? So for my deep, I want my camera to be far from my subject. That make sense? He's sad, he's far away. Yes, so far? Okay. And I also mean, so this is camera to subject. And then we also have subject to what? No. To background. Okay? So if my subject is, what do I want? I want shallow. Is far from my from my background, right? This is a great deal of distance, okay? If it's far, then I'm gonna have easier to do shallow depth of field. If I do my subject close to my background, then it's gonna have a deeper depth of field. So if you think about it this way, if you're trying to take my portrait and you don't want all this junk on the background, and you try to blur this, but I'm right next to it, do you see how that's like harder to blur than if I was to stand over where Emily's standing and you're shooting from that way and shooting backwards, right? Where if I turn around and you're shooting here, you can blur that super easy because it's far away. Okay? Does that make sense to you? So, this is the basics of the three things that affect depth of field, okay? For this assignment, you're going to do all of this, sort of like we did brackets. So you're going to do these in groups of threes, okay, as well. I think, though, that I would rather have you guys do the bookwork for it, and then we come back and re-talk about this after you have that bookwork portion done. And then the next time we talk about this, I'll talk about these as well as the other settings on the camera, because this is where life gets a little trickier. Because for this, you're going to be moving all of your settings, except for possibly ISO, while you're doing it. Before, you were just worrying about your meter and just shutter speed. Now you're going to have to change your aperture for every picture. And if you change your aperture for every picture, you have to change your shutter speed for every picture and watch your meter for every picture. Okay? Does that make sense? Questions? All right, that's the basics. Bye. Or not.